Welcome to another edition of DX Engineering Videos. We're here today at Contest University 2018 in downtown Dayton, Ohio, and we have a very special guest with us. It's Ted Rappaport, N9NB. Hello, Ted.
Hi, Tim. It's great to be with you.
It is certainly a real treat for us. Ted, you know, I'm sure some people that are watching this video have learned about you through some of your work at universities and as a wireless expert, but how did you get started in ham radio?
Well, I call it the best break of my life. I was a freshman, beginning of freshman year in high school, and I broke my leg in a sandlot football game. I was 13, I was laid up in a body cast for 6 months, and my grandmother gave me a shortwave radio, and I was listening around and I heard this program DX Jukebox on HCJB, and they were talking about ham radio, and so I learned about the Morse code, and I made myself cassette tapes, and I'd go to sleep because all I could do is lay there for 6 months listening to Morse code and listening to shortwave, and I put an ad. I sent a letter to 73 Magazine or QST that said, I'm 13, I'm getting out of a body cast soon, is there anyone in Cambridge City, Indiana who could give me my novice exam? And 2 gentlemen 5 blocks away wrote me a postcard, and when I got out of the body cast, I hiked up the hill on crutches and saw a ham radio shack for the first time, and it was magic, and best break I ever had because it led me into teaching adults at the Whitewater Valley Amateur Radio Club in Richmond, Indiana, and I got a love for teaching and experimented with antennas. I built an NVIS antenna in high school, and I didn't even know what NVIS was, and went on to Purdue, and luckily the cellular industry was just starting, and the professors there took me under their wing, and the rest is history. I've made a life of wireless.
You sure have, and you've continued in your amateur radio career, and you've done a lot of things around. You've built a very nice station that you have currently in Virginia.
Yeah.
And why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, all my life until a few years ago, I never had a tower. I was always using wire antennas. In college, I'd put up wire antennas outside the apartment, and wherever I lived, I never put a tower. I was always working and really never fully engaged in the hobby that I loved. I tried to stay close to it. And then I kind of had a time in my career where for about 10 or 15 years, I really lost touch with the hobby. I kept my call current, and I'd make a QSO every year or so, but then finally, when I turned 50, I thought, I need to find a station which really will be good, and found some acreage in southwestern Virginia near Virginia Tech, where I had started my academic career, and I've built a really nice station on top of a mountain, 2 towers, and I did it while I was working at the University of Texas, so you can relate, Tim, flying back and forth from different parts of the country. But now it's my sanctuary, and I can work pretty much anything I can hear. It's a lot of fun. I don't get to do it enough, but it's a lot of fun.
That is very cool, and of course, you've also written several books. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your writings?
Yeah, well, I've been very blessed as a professor to have come into the wireless industry back in the very early days. I graduated from Purdue in 1987, and in fact I had a chance to meet President Reagan in 1985 when he gave Purdue this giant grant, a research grant, and I had this idea of providing wireless in factories. And President Reagan said, "Nice job, son," when I got to tell him about it. That's when I knew I wanted to be an academic, when the President of the United States flew to the university and I was a student, and they gave funding and allowed us to think of the factory of the future. That research went on to become part of the world's first Wi-Fi standard, IEEE 802.11. And when I started my career at Virginia Tech in 1988, the cell phone industry probably didn't have 1 million subscribers yet in the world, or at least not in the US. And I started teaching a course on cellular communications when there really wasn't any curriculum for wireless. And I knew there'd be this huge need for engineers. There'd need to be a way to produce enough engineers to build all the infrastructure around the world. Of course, now we have more cell phones than there are people on the planet. But back then, in 1988, it was so scarce. In fact, the town I was teaching in, Blacksburg, Virginia, didn't even have any cellular phones yet. We were teaching the material. But that led me to create a curriculum and to create books. First was the wireless book. It came about from 6 or 7 years of notes, of teaching the course and working with industry and actually working with government and starting my first company, which intercepted cell phone and paging signals. And then I received an NSF grant to actually develop a wireless curriculum. And from that came books on smart antennas, which are now going to be a part of all 5G,
right,
as well as simulation. And of course, simulation is how all the large wireless companies actually figure out what the future technology is going to be. So, I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be early on and to have met so many influential people who have been mentors to me and who have kind of gotten behind our research at the different universities I've worked.
So right now you're working at NYU, and
Yeah.
So give us a little brief description of what you do there.
Yeah, well, NYU is the third university I've worked at. I started my career at Virginia Tech for 14 years, and I loved it there. I have a lot of friends. I got to hire a lot of the faculty there, and that program lives on. Then I went to the University of Texas for 10 years, hired a lot of the faculty there, and they just invited me back for their 15th year reunion of WNCG, the Wireless Networking and Communications Group. And then NYU recruited me in 2012, and it was really exciting because NYU and Brooklyn Polytechnic, the engineering school in Brooklyn, were talking about merging. And in academia, you don't get much of an opportunity to be part of the ground floor of a team that gets a merger done. And the leadership there at both universities said, come on, help build a wireless center. And I took the job, and I've loved it. It's been amazing. Tim, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And I went and I said, I'll take the job if you promise that my students and I can get access to any rooftop we want at NYU, because we're going to do 5G. We're going to do the research to prove it's true. And they said, okay. They didn't like that. They don't like professors and students getting on roofs. But we actually did the measurements, proved to the world that millimeter wave frequencies 10 times higher than today's cellular could carry much more bandwidth and actually could go around corners and bounce, and you could use smart antennas, adaptive antennas. We proved to the world that it would work in the streets of Manhattan on the campus of NYU. And so we launched a program called NYU Wireless. It's a research center. We have a large number of faculty. We've hired more. And we host the Brooklyn 5G Summit every year. We just had our last summit last month in April. And Nokia Bell Labs is a sponsor and partner in that, and we bring the world leaders of wireless together onto the NYU campus to meet the students, to meet each other. FCC comes, Ofcom comes from UK, and we make news. The world leaders are there, and we talk, and 5G has kind of evolved from these gatherings. We had our 5th summit.
Oh, that is so cool. Well, Ted, thanks very much for taking time out of Contest University today, and I hope all of you at home have enjoyed this, and we look forward to another edition of DX Engineering Videos.
Thank you, Tim. 73.